Oh, no. No, you didn't really say that, did you? Well, what his response was. What are advice? You should know. It keeps getting worse and worse.
Good morning. It is 9 a.m. and I'll call to order the Board of Directors special meeting workshop for Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. May I have a roll call, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Present.
Director Duff,
Here.
Director Martin,
Here.
Vice President Griffith,
Present.
President Sewell.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Thank you. Seeing that all 5 directors are present, we'll skip item 3 and move on to item 4, public input. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters within the board's jurisdiction. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. State law prohibits the board from discussing or taking action on any items not listed on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public wishing to address the board?
President Sewell, we do not.
Thank you. Discussion items. Item 5, solar project update. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell. Danny Friend, Director of Operations, is going to provide a little bit of an update, but just to set the table, this will be discussing both the larger project that we're moving forward with from a design and construction perspective using the M 2.0, as well as our existing facility, because there's been questions I've received on both.
Good morning, President Sewell. I'm sorry about that. General Manager Macy, thank you for that. Good morning, President Sewell, members of the board. Sorry, I'm just trying to get a couple of things loaded up for visuals, and unfortunately, I have been denied access to the shared server with our consultant, so I'll work through that. So just some update on what we've got going on. The project itself began, and this, as we call, 5 or 6 NEM 2.0 sites. The NEM 2.0 had a April 14th, 2023 deadline to apply for. What that gave us was a better project that was financially better for the district for a net metering project. We also had a Res BCT, not an expansion because of our existing Res BCT site or existing solar site, we're unable to actually expand it, but we can build adjacent to it and build another project that is exactly like a Res BCT tariff qualified project. So we had the 6 original sites, and we had the RSBCT site, and we had always determined that because of the way that the NEM 2.0 is, you can't necessarily expand, but you can decrease a certain percentage. And there have been different constraints, whether there have been multi-species habitat constraint, flood zone issues. Not that they would have taken away or taken our ability from building said project, but they had the ability to have longer long-term O&M costs that in that case would have likely had probably triggered the contractor to maybe renegotiate the cost of our PPA. So there are other things that were involved as far as other covenants that it just seemed better that what we would do is we would take out of the 6 NEM 2.0 sites, we decided to go ahead and knock it down to 2. The 2 that will remain is a Horton plant, and the second would be the location for the Nancy Wright Regional Facility. And are you in that folder? So there's one called, excuse me for a moment, please. And then what I'm looking to do is the Horton facility first. So what I'm asking to be pulled up is the footprint of the Horton facility. So if you can scroll through those pages and get to what a layout looks like for the photovoltaic layout. I think it's on the 3rd page. My apologies. I've had a couple of setbacks this morning. There you go. So there's the footprint for the Horton. It's going to go into the southeast corner of the facility. Thank you. And arrow over. Top. Oh, there you go. This is that fancy one. There you go. So hold down. Fantastic. This is new. I got some kind of interference. So the blue is the solar arrays. That is the layout for the Horton facility. Nothing's changing with that site. That's still going to be a NEM 2.0 site. And we would then, what you don't see in the picture is the lavender line or the purple line is the electrical line that comes and connects to our meter. It wasn't the intent to get into those details this morning, but just to let you know, we still have a NEM 2 net energy metering 2.0 project with the Horton facility. If I can go to the Nancy Wright facility, you're going to have a similar scroll down to, and there you go. So what you see in that picture is you see the existing solar site off of 19th and Little Morongo. What you're seeing to the south or to the lower left corner is the footprint for the Nancy Wright. That facility, as presented to the board when we started the PPA contract, has not changed. It's still going to be a NEM 2.0. The well 29, the well 27, 32, and 24 locations are the ones that it didn't make sense. We started having some conflict with existing utilities, our own utilities, not necessarily other like Edison. And when we started paring that project down, it just didn't pencil out. So the nice part about this is we've always intended to be able to take any kilowatts that we weren't able to generate from a size standpoint and build into our new Res BCT site. If you go into the next one and you go into that. So this is where I had a hang up this morning. I was trying to log in and I was told I didn't have access today. So I think it's just a glitch. But what's proposed in front of you would have been well, you can see south of that is, or to the bottom of the screen, you see the existing Res BCT site or existing Well 33 solar site. North of it in blue is what would be the new Res BCT site. It's what we're going to apply for a new meter, have a new generating account, and then we would be able to apply it. So what I intended to bring on the screen is the new footprint that looks like, so we're going to do 4.8 megawatts combined with 6 NEM 2 sites and 1 Res BCT site. We still plan to do 4.8 megawatts. It's just we're going to roll what we didn't build on 4 sites over into Res BCT site. And what I would have shown you is a new footprint that would have expanded past the 2 solar arrays on the bottom of the screen. So there was going to be another row that would have expanded to the west, and then there would have been some additional footprint to the north. I'll bring that back to the board at another time, but that's just essentially to show you the difference between the 2 footprints. Part of what's allowing us to do that is with the regional plant project, we were doing a parcel map that's going to be going in front of the city council for approval. That parcel map has taken the multiple parcels that make up between 19th and 20th from Little Morongo to our property line, all those properties, to make them into 3 properties. You're going to have the northern portion, which would be at 19th to the end of our property area, which would be considered our solar property. You're going to have well 33 as a second property. And then you're going to have the balance of that, which is going to be the regional plant for its current footprint and future expansion. The takeaway from today is just to let you know that although some of those things that are changing, they really have no significant impact on the contract, that there are no big changes being proposed at this point in time. We're still working through different permit processes with this project, or when I say project, I mean all the sites. We're still working through different application processes with the Southern California Edison. And before I open it up to questions and switch gears to our existing site, General Manager Macy, did you have anything you wanted to add? I know that we talked quickly this morning.
No, I just wanted to make sure, as I understand it, this is 2.64 megawatts, and we're going to be putting 4 megawatts here. So what basically it's going to be 50% of this larger than what we're seeing in front of us. And it's simply going to be to the west of this existing facility, which will sort of line up with what you don't see on this exhibit, which is below and behind the NEM 2.0 for the Nancy Wright facility. So basically we're taking the existing field and just building around it in the same property.
In concept, I agree with that statement 100%. I just, whether it's 50% exactly, but in concept, exactly that.
Okay.
So one of the things I failed to, one of the things that we're doing when we do this parcel map is we are going to be vacating a bunch of utility easements that existed when these parcels are as they are today. Those existing utilities easements essentially is what, I guess there was some believed constraint that we couldn't build any further to the west. So with the parcel map, that allowed us to expand this site. So with that, I'm open to questions.
And these drawings are what, 60% drawing? So we're still going through the process of evaluating.
The screen, and that's why I said in concept, General Manager Macy, is I'm pulling up 30%. I'm pulling up less than 30%.
Perfect. Right.
This has gone through a 30, a 60, we're at 90, and we actually have 100% that we're reviewing now. Because in concept, yes, what we're doing is we're making up the energy generation at the SBCT site in lieu of not building the 4 additional NEM2 sites. So without being able to see that, because I am partially blind, I can't commit that that number is going to be 50% greater. What I'm here to say is from the beginning, this project is going to build 4.8 megawatts, and we're still going to go ahead and build 4.8 megawatts. It's just going to consist differently and be more at the ResBCT site. So.
And I guess just to clarify on that too, the 2 sites that you showed us of the NIM 2.0, the Horton and the Nancy Wright, those are the same footprint that was originally proposed?
That's correct. There's no changes to that. There might be some conduit alignment changes, but that has no bearing on what the actual project it was in the footprint, and still being a NEM 2.0.
Okay, because I know that's the one that we really have the hard deadline on.
They do. They have an April 2026 deadline. And so far, working through some of the challenges that we've had on this project, there seems to be a solid commitment and optimism that there's no issues going to be able to hit that target for the April 2026 NEM2 deadline.
Okay. Questions? I mean, workshop, feel free to.
Yeah, just a minor question on here, but on the picture, it says area protected from bollards. I don't understand why you would need protection from bollards.
So
I thought if it was the area protected by bollards, perhaps. First line of that, first line. Okay.
Edison has a requirement. So the fence, the site itself will be fenced in as part of this project. This footprint and all footprints will be fenced in. Horton, for example, we don't need to fence in.
I understand that. That doesn't really address what I'm asking. What I'm asking is that a misstatement, protected from bollards, or is that? I would think it would say protected by bollards.
I would assume that it's just
Typo?
it's the type. Yeah. Yeah, they're going to be bollards there, and those bollards will be to protect the Edison equipment that's on site. But
I've never needed to be protected from a bollard in my life.
As I mentioned, as I mentioned, thank you for the wonkiness of this presentation. I wasn't necessarily prepared to bring these up. I wanted to bring something differently up, but this is what I had last minute. These are the very initial drawings that were prepared for us. And what I do know is the footprint for Horton and the footprint for the Nancy Wright facility hasn't changed. What I can say is the data on these plans and any of these typos or maybe some of the weird language has been corrected. So my apologies.
Other questions?
No, ladies first.
Can we just back up a little bit, please? And maybe just for myself and public, can you explain why the contractor who presented to us the 6 sites, who told us that they had already reviewed them all and everything was good to go, what changed? Can you clarify, is it the increase of costs and tariffs? Is it the reducement of the grant money available? What is the reason the contractor has changed its plans?
So I just, before I answer, I want to clarify. So when you say change, the fact that we're not building 4 additional NEM2?
Yes.
No problem. So there is a combination of just a few things. As you recall, this project was essentially the same project that Angie presented. And when we turned it into a PPA, if this would still have been like, say, for example, a project that we purchased, and the what we were going to see out of that project as far as the benefit of energy savings. Some of the issues that we saw about sizing down probably may have never triggered that we would have not built the site. But because this is a PPA, some of the things that happened is during a plan review, they came back with a solar array location. I said, we can't build over this. This is our water line, so we have to have access. So what they did is they moved solar arrays to different areas. And that's an example for example, on well 27 and well 29. No, I have to have an entrance. No, I still have to have clearance to be able to get around our well site. So what happens when that site pared down, it pared down to a size that it didn't pencil out. So we agreed that it would be something that we could roll over into the Res BCT site. As far as other issues, 32, for example, 32 had an issue with the flood zone, and so did 24. So at the end of the day, it didn't seem it made sense to the district that if we can still get the benefit of this project by getting it out of a Res BCT rather than negotiate a change in our PPA per kilowatt hour cost, that's the direction that we went in. It hadn't have anything to do that they had an oversight or they decided to keep the project intact is maybe the best way I can say it. General Manager Macy, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I was just going to add the insurance issue was a little bit of a surprise to us, and even Staten, for example. It was the risk that was associated, even though those areas are above the 100-year floodway and not in any concern whatsoever, never had any flooding that we're aware of. The insurance that they were going for they were struggling with getting that approved. So when they started looking at the numbers and said, well, if they make it smaller to stay out of a specific area, then it triggers everything that he just went through. But the insurance one was the one that caught us by surprise because we've had those wells there for years, never had a problem. They're above the 100-year. We've gone through multiple sanitary surveys where you have to be so far above the flood. So that was sort of caught us by surprise, but it was really the risk manager for the insurance agent that they were working with that said that, we don't feel comfortable with this. So they were doing their own risk assessment. Because if you remember the timeline that we had, the first 6 months with due diligence, and that's when they came in. And the other thing is we're running into is even though they walked the site and they said, yeah, this looks good, when you actually start doing design and then see what's underneath and some of the existing utilities that were there, it did make some of the sizes shrink a little bit. And that whatever the knee of the curve that you were trying to stay above or below triggered, okay, let's look at something else, or we're going to have to break open the PPA. And nobody wanted to do that. So that's why and then of course the economics of having 3 sites, one really big and 2 rather large ones versus 6 really smaller sites is also.
I can understand the consolidation and the cost effectiveness. I understand all of that. I was just trying to understand what triggered it, because when they presented it to us, it was so clear that this was an easy, no problem, due diligence done deal. So I'm just trying to make sure that we're clear for the public and for ourselves and for our own information as to what the reasons for this change was, because they presented it to us as though the 6 projects were completely ready to go and that they'd done their due diligence and that we didn't have any of these issues. So I just wanted to make sure that we had a clear understanding as to what the causes of, because to me, all the things we hear in the news and I keep hearing from every solar person that knocks on my door, I've gone through so many residential presentations and they tell you they can do one thing. And then when they show up, they give you totally different numbers. And I kind of feel like this is what's just happened. So I just kind of wanted some clarifying on why the changes now versus not before, when they were having so many meetings with us. It's not like we gave them one opportunity. We've talked about this for so long. So I just really wanted some clarifying understanding as to why the change now. If it came from up above, if it was because of administration in Washington, D.C., if it was because of the different grants being clawed back, that makes complete sense to me. But if it's because they didn't communicate with us about where our pipes are, that kind of upsets me. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully I answered your question. Thank you for that additional information.
Well, and if there are other things going on, such as grant funding or other financial issues that the agencies or the contractor we're working, we're not privy to all those. All they said is this seemed to be the best process in moving forward. And as long as it didn't, we still got the benefit that we're looking at. Was it a 25-year benefit that we're looking at?
I believe that was the benefit.
without any changes. I think that's also good. There's also been some issues about the NIM 2.0 and how long that will be in existence. So that was also something that was brought to us by Kenwood Energy, that if the NIM 2.0 is changed or those contracts are not followed all the way through, that puts us at risk too. So this is an opportunity to minimize that risk, and you may want to consider it. So while we're talking about a lot of the construction aspects of it, and that's what really started us down this path, there have been other conversations that is also in the back of the mind saying, you know what, maybe this isn't such a bad idea. So it's a lot of different things going on.
Seems like a lot of moving parts are influencing the contractor in these decisions. And as long as the district is ensuring that we are not losing any of the footing promised by this contract initially, and that we are going to get everything we were guaranteed, otherwise we need price reductions.
At this time, that is what is being stated.
Awesome.
I will say thank you for bringing that question for clarity. Whether I'm in a good spot with whomever I'm with as far as a contractor wise goes, I will say that on the side of the contractor, remember, we're the ones that gave them a footprint of what it was that had never gone to the scrutiny with NG. We also the ones that handed over the interconnection applications for the NEM sites. There were several others that we had done for every site, but we never materialized because they just weren't feasible projects. So this may be the only time, but I'm in defense of the contractor. It wasn't entirely their issue.
I just was surprised that those were the reasons versus the removal of grant money and the removal of federal funds that they were expecting.
If you recall, Kenwood, I'm sorry, sir, if you recall, Kenwood Energy was brought on as the expert. You know, if you want to start talking about wastewater facilities, water facilities, let's have a nice day. We can go through that, but it takes a certain level to get to that, and that's what Kenwood is. So Kenwood assured us that the footprint of what they're saying can be built, with what they were presenting for the equipment and the output and the generation all made sense. So what was never really scrutinized is, hey, great, conceptually we're okay, guys, but when it gets down to the real discussion, it's like you can't limit my access. So there is, like I said, it may be the only time, but in defense of the contractor, I'll say this: it isn't entirely their issue.
Director Duff, you had a lot easier time from General Manager Macy getting that insurance question answered. Or why the flood zoning, the insurance company coming in and looking at the flooding, General Manager Macy, isn't that right? I heard something coming up about insurance. Yes. And
Yeah, right.
right, and you, General Manager Macy and I get together and we have these discussions about projects. They last about a half hour with me asking 100 questions and General Manager Macy looking up some of them sometimes, but I enjoy those conversations. So during this process that General Manager Macy and I were talking, I couldn't figure out from a development standpoint as how that got overlooked or any of this got overlooked. And apparently it was the insurance company from General Manager Macy's explanation that finally came in and noticed that they were sitting in a floodplain. Now, this, Mr. Friend, how many solar companies are we dealing with? 3, I believe, 3 different companies?
We're dealing with one entity, Trident Emission, MSWD or Mission Springs.
And the other solar fields are owned by who? We have 2 other solar fields that are owned by 2 other companies.
So for clarification on the PPA project is we've got one contract.
Okay.
If we're talking about the existing, which would be the footprint that you see on the bottom of the screen, we own and operate that. We own and semi-operate that facility. I'm going to talk about that facility next. That was before I finished with the PPA. I was going to go into that site as well.
All right, because
But I'm not aware of a second solar site. Maybe
it's the existing one that we own, but it's maintained by somebody else.
so.
We talked about these solar fields before not operating properly and.
Correct. I'm going to get into that in the next.
Okay,
In the next.
so we'll
subject,
save
but
that
You made
then
a
for
comment
later.
that we have 2 others, and I'm trying to understand what the second location is. But we have
I
one
would-
other existing site.
We have one existing site over there off of Little Maroma.
Correct.
Okay, so we're only dealing with two solar companies.
So we're dealing with a PPA contract that was presented to the board of directors. And we're dealing with what we need is an O&M contract. An O&M contract is simply to come in, do the cleaning, the maintenance. And again, I'm going to talk more about that in when I transition to the new site or the existing site. But
Are these two separate entities? Or one entity handling all the solar on these fields?
they are two entities. There's a solar PPA.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at.
Okay, well, then there's an existing site and there's a proposed site that hasn't been constructed.
That sounds good. We're on the same page here. So, and I talked to you about this, well, you're gonna get to this. We'll get into that later. My point is here is that this is always changing. The why it's changing so much and why we aren't going in and saying, hey, we're gonna put something here. Where are the utilities? What's going on here before we try to put something here or even get to this point? Now, I can understand the insurance company catching the floodplain area. But even then, that makes me kind of wonder because the floodplain's a floodplain. It's hard not to see it when you look at the layout. So how is this stuff all getting overlooked and then we're coming back here doing it more than once? I mean, if I was going to develop a piece of property, I'd go out and say, well, I'm going to have these EPA 8 issues. We're going to have that's in a floodplain over in that corner. There's the utilities. But this doesn't seem to be getting done here, and I don't quite understand it. And we went through this confusion. We got one company here that we're dealing with who turned it into what? How many LLCs does that one company with all the different sites have? How many LLCs does this project have?
We only have one LLC, and that's
One LLC
that's
now,
what we did.
because at one time the company was having an LLC for every site. And I think it was 7 LLCs at one time.
I can understand that this comes off as confusing. So let me provide some clarification. So there was no oversight on the floodplain. MSWD is very familiar with FEMA 1, FEMA 2, FEMA 3 floodplain maps. All of our well sites have to be above a certain floodplain. So from that standpoint, what General Manager Macy was saying is nobody expected that the contractor or Staten, which is the owner of the Trident Mission Springs Water or MSWD LLC, to come back and put such a constraint on the insurance requirements. That's something that we're not required to do with the type of facilities that we have in the same properties. So that was something that I get it. Hopefully that would have been something that was gathered in early due diligence, but it wasn't because it's never been an issue for the district.
So that I can understand that one being maybe overlooked, but when we're talking about utilities on our property and
So
water
again,
and
on
kind of
that,
thing,
so I guess, go ahead, Mr.
I was gonna say, you also have to look at the delivery method. Most projects that you see go through a design, bid, and build. This is not that delivery method. This is a design build. So you take a concept and then you go through the due diligence after you enter into the contract. And then the contractor, in this case, Staten and their engineers, go through a process. They bid and then they build, not the other way around. So you expect changes in a project like this. Usually when you're looking at changes at a project like this, it's at one particular location. In this particular case, it's multiple locations. So this was expected.
And just to add, thank you, sir. Just to add to that, there was the due diligence in the beginning that's done by anybody that bids on a project, correct? It also has a due diligence period in the front end of this project. So not knowing, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, I don't know what solar arrays they're going to use. I don't know what kind of panels. I don't know what kind of generation, but they do. So when they go ahead and they give us their first component of that, excuse me, when they give us their first rendition of that and we say, hey, we got to have this, I just need things moved over 2 feet. It's very simple for me to ask that question. But when you go ahead and you take what they're going to provide us and you move something over 2 feet, we got other fire lane issues. So yes, we threw in the wrench. So I know it could be construed as being overlooked. We're doing 2 things 2 or 3 times, but there's a lot of things here that are built into the way this project was set up from the beginning. So Can we all be better? Can there all be better efficiencies in projects? Absolutely. We're working through this. The project is still underway. The project is still going to construct and provide us the end product that we agreed to at this time.
All right, and we'll have a chance for comments later, right? Thank you.
And you had more of the second solar?
Yeah, I'd like
or
to
the
transition into our existing site if we're done with the PPA. Thank you. So our existing site, Director Meyerhoffen, you're correct. There've been some issues. For clarification on that, we are the owners of that facility. We are supposed to retain an O&M company to come in and do annual maintenance, take care of things that are consistent with the agreement that we have for the construction of that and the grant that we also have been provided through AQMD. As you know, we have been struggling with some of the issues that have come on with SunPower. Prior to SunPower's bankruptcy, SunPower had actually sold a portion of what they call their commercial gosh darn it, I can't remember, but their commercial side, but our project, where our project falls under, they had actually worked out a deal with Total Energies. So in the beginning, it was a very seamless process. It seemed pretty good until Total Energy started also to go south. One of the things that we so we're working with Kenwood. Kenwood went out and did a request for proposals informal. We're working with a company called PVCA. They are familiar with not only solar, that's what their bread and butter is. They work here in the valley. They're not from the valley, but they have 5 different large sites that they maintain. The one immediately north of us, actually everything around us, the ones that are north and west of us, they all maintain. So they've been to the site, they've analyzed the site, they provided us a scope and to evaluate everything, to come back and tell us exactly what we need. There are things I won't mention today. We'll probably mention those at a different time of where we are with Total Energies. However, April 14th, PVCA will be on site analyzing, making maintenance repairs of those things that are quickly. If there's anything major, they'll go ahead and prepare an actual proposal for costs. We'll use those in different ways, whether we agree to take care of those corrections or move forward with a different method to approach Total Energies. The other thing that that we were happy to hear is, speaking with PVCA, they're familiar with the portal that we use where our data goes to that we're supposed to get. They're very familiar. They monitor, I believe they said 9 sites that are also using that same portal. And they said just because it looks like possibly things are offline doesn't necessarily mean they're offline. They're obviously generating power, but the API from the solar site that has been an issue with almost everything that SunPower has to the portal is the issue. So we're still pretty optimistic that when they go out there, they're going to determine that because we've got nothing, no fuses blowing, no disconnects. So we won't know, but what we're going to use is PVCA to come in and doing a full evaluation of the site, get any minor things corrected, get everything back to tracking if they can, and assess what is needed as far as a repair list. So I think I covered everything that I wanted to cover. Do you have anything you want to add, General Manager Macy?
No.
So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Feel free.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know it was a little botched up this morning, but thank you.
Well, I just appreciate the way that we're moving forward with Little Morongo site, getting them to come in and evaluate, giving us kind of like when you get a car accident, right? You take your car in to get an estimate so that you have something to go back to the person who was supposed to be taking care of it for you. So I just appreciate the way you're going through it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just along those lines, thank you for keeping us updated. As much as I'd like to have a perfect project, that probably doesn't exist. And I think if they uncover things that make more sense and are better efficient to make the change now before we get too far down the path, I think that's the right choice. And keeping flexibility at our well sites and not having that space taken up by solar, I think is a good thing too. Because who knows what we might need at those well sites in the future.
I don't know, it's like it's a perfect project, President. So I do look as a great project. They all have challenges. How we manage those challenges, I think, is what is the best outcome of the project. So um, some some challenges can't be managed as good as others, but we're going to do our best.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to item 6.
We're gonna have some comments.
I thought you were saying,
No, we're done.
we're still,
We're done.
if we can be on item 5, still if you have comments. That's what I was.
Yes, yes,
Opening up.
thank you. What is taking place with this company, with all the confusion and going back and forth, is exactly why we voted no for the first company. What was that guy's name? Ajit, or what was the first company that came here? Solar company? Ajit or Ajit? Anyways,
A shoe.
Ajit, yeah. So we voted no because of this same reason, all over the chart with everything. And here we are now with an $18 million deal all over the chart again. And if I could stop this, I would, because it's just ludicrous the way we're going about this, the way the companies are going about it. The only people that are making money in the solar business are the people in the solar business. Everybody, it's just an outrageous amount of money that these companies are making. Salesmen are making anywhere from $100,000 to $400,000 a year just being a salesman. So what are we doing here? And with AI and the amount of electricity that AI is going to use in the future, people are investors, billionaires are investing in other alternative energy to make sure that that power will be there for AI and it isn't through solar. I guarantee you, in 5 years, we're going to be sorry we did this because the technology is moving so fast. To keep up with AI, it has to move that fast. So once again, if I could stop this mess, I would.
Director Meyerhoffen, let me add that the reason we went with this particular project versus the previous one that was proposed by NG, we were going to do where we owned all the facilities and we took a lot of the risk. This particular project is a PPA where we're only purchasing the power. All the risk goes to the Staten Group and them. So the issues that you're making reference to about future risks and uses and different changes in technology, our risk is very minimal. Our contract is very clear on how much benefit we get out of this, and we're doing everything we can to hold them to that benefit.
Our risk is if they claim bankruptcy on an LLC, then we're going to be there having to figure out how to get the mess undone.
Actually, the liability is that we get the entire infrastructure at no cost. So that's how we're mitigating the risk. We get the benefit of the project if they do go bankrupt.
And along the way, there's a performance bond that will be placed to, if we're not in that position, we have a performance bond that we can call on to get us in that position. So
From the way things look so far, we may be heading that direction. And there's no saying in business, if it isn't put together properly in the beginning, it's going to unravel in the end.
I just want to clarify, this is not costing us 18 million. Our costs are minimal, correct?
that is correct. What General Manager Macy explained is the previous project with NG was the large commitment to CapEx costs. This one, as we have, is virtually very little risk. A project like this can't be managed without a consultant. So when you think about roughly 300 and something $1,000 to go ahead and get the benefit for the long term, it's very minimal. So, but it's not 18 million.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
Item 6, groundwater quality protection project update. General Manager?
Thank you, President Sewell. This project is brought back to you. It relates to the D3 assessment district project. I believe the board had asked that we bring assessment districts as a whole back to them so they can get a better understanding of the costs associated with each when they expire, and just basically bringing the entire program together at one time and be able to ask any questions. So with that, I've asked our engineering manager, Eric Weck, to put together a discussion item.
Thank you, General Manager Macy. Good morning, President Sewell and members of the board. Excuse me. So after doing some research and with the help of engineering staff, we were able to come up with some information for the assessment district number 18, which encompasses a total of 2,419 parcels. There we go. So initially, I believe one of the questions was, give us some background on this on these assessment districts. So originally, it was formed in December of 2019, and it sunsets in 10 years. It has a 10-year sunset, so it expires in 2029.
Let me just,
Yes, sir.
so everybody doesn't get sticker shock, because I just got sticker shock. When you're looking at these estimated project costs of $91 million, that's significant more than what we had presented and talked about earlier. The reason that these numbers are so high is because this goes back to a smaller sample size, if you will, in D3 that we just went out to bid. And knowing what's going on with the economy and some of the other things going on, we even felt that those bids were relatively high when we received them, but it is the latest and greatest set of documents that we have as far as a similar project. So since we were talking about all of these projects collectively and where the costs are right now, we use the best available information. There's nothing saying that these won't go down in a different situation or different if these projects are grouped together. I just wanted to clarify that there is a significant change in cost on this sheet. Sorry, Eric, go ahead.
No, that's right. What I was going to get to, sir. We were able to come up with the approved single-family assessment amount of $8,000, $8,087, an approved vacant lot assessment amount of $6,764. So knowing that information, we calculated the assessment district contribution for each of the sub areas. There's 7 sub areas. And as General Manager Macy mentioned, we did receive a recent bid for Area D3. That's the second one down there. For Area D3, and the construction cost for the sewer work would be $2.6 million. Well, you'll also notice to the column on the left, it says the estimated assessment district contribution was $815,000. So D3 is pretty much the standard of what I used to come up with new updated costs for construction. If you have any questions or anything, just jump in.
Just to, ideally, that estimated assessment district contribution cost, well, that is what we originally told that district when we formed it. So ideally, the construction cost would be twice that.
In theory, yes. But however, given that this assessment district 18 was formed in 2019, and I honestly hate saying this, but COVID has driven up a lot of these costs. I've been keeping tabs on some of the Riverside County costs for their public works projects, and they have increased over that amount of time as well. So yeah, in theory, the assessment district should cover half of the construction cost. Here you'll see the estimated construction cost for Area A is $24 million with a total project cost, which includes the contingency, geotechnical, contract management, inspection, things like that. It brings it to about $32 million. And that doesn't include any contributions for Army Corps of Engineers. And I believe they will contribute something like $3.5 or $4 million per year. And likewise, Area A will be in several phases as well. It won't be done all at one shot. I suspect I'll be coming back to this slide. I've got some additional slides here.
Perfect.
Sir?
Oh, I just said perfect.
Okay. So just as an overall 50,000 foot level, this is how all of the assessment districts, I'm sorry, all the sub areas of the assessment district are laid out within the district. You'll see Area D3 is the kind of the yellow area. Area A is one of the largest, and that's currently being worked on with Army Corps as well as Area G. I'll get into that in a second. So this just kind of gives you a basic layout of Assessment District 18, as well as Area M2 down there at the bottom.
Hold on, before, since this is a workshop, I'll just, quick question. I see 8015 is only containing M2. Is M2 the last area in 8015?
Yes,
So it's complete, so we only have one assessment
only one.
district that's active and it's all in 18.
8015 is only covers M2. That's it. 8015.
Okay. I just
8018
want-
covers the bigger.
Everything else. Okay. So we've converted all of the existing assessment districts into one and that's 8018. Okay.
Okay, so focusing in on Area A, that's by Mission Lakes Country Club. The estimated AD assessment district proceeds are a little over $7 million. Again, this $32 million has been updated to today's cost of $613 per foot for sewer. That project was started by Army Corps of Engineers. Excuse me. However, along with Area G, Area A and G are tied together. We got word from the Army Corps that the engineer for that is gone bankrupt, I believe. And so Mission Springs will need to take over the completing the design. I believe the design is about 90% complete. And just as a just go ahead. Yeah.
When we had our Mission Lakes Town Hall recently, we were talking about this exact issue. And it said that the Army Corps at that time was looking to hire another engineer. And that's what we were pressuring them for.
Yes.
Are they now saying they're not going to hire a new engineer and we have to foot the cost of that?
Yes.
Okay.
They said they mentioned to us that they ran through their allotment for design costs. Area D3 we discussed several times in the past. I just thought I'd bring this back. And it shows the proceeds, assessment district proceeds for that. Obviously, the design is complete. We received the bids in April, in January. And I'll have a agenda item for that in April. Again, Area A, this is Area G. They're both tied together. And estimated AD proceeds is $1.5 million. Again, the project costs have been brought up to date using current construction values. There's two sub areas here, areas H and I, and total of 675 units parcels between both of these sub areas. And you'll see almost 3 miles of sewer for area H will be installed. These are significant. This is a significant amount of sewer line to be constructed. Area J2, the design is complete on this sub area. We will need to repackage it. I believe in the past there was some other work that was included in the plans. We do have the AutoCAD plans, and once we get a design consultant, we can hand that over to them and remove the unneeded design, because that stuff has been done before. But there's about 17,000 linear feet of sewer needed for this area. And finally, Area K. This is one of the 7 sub areas for Assessment District 18. There's about 14,000 estimated 14,000 feet of sewer that needs to be constructed. This has not been designed yet, and we estimate about $2 million, a little over $2 million for Assessment District proceeds. So you'll see when I bring that up, you'll also see the estimated project costs of $11.7 million. So there's a disconnect on funding that. Bear in mind, again, this assessment district was established in 2019, and it doesn't reflect current 2025 construction costs. Are there any questions so far?
Do we have all these areas that you mentioned like prioritized of ideally this is
I'm
next
glad you
on-
asked. Yes, sir. So, according to what we have, J2, area J2 is priority 1. And that's kind of based on how we laid it out with the Army Corps of Engineers as well. So good. Design is complete, and we just need to do a little tweaking and refresh it a little bit and repackage it. The next priority would be area H and I. So H is second priority, I is third. And K is the fourth. And area A and G, as I talked about earlier, are the fifth and sixth priorities. So J2 is the top priority right now. Oh, in terms of priorities? There you go. Yeah. And I can certainly go back to the beginning slide that shows the spreadsheet of all the areas consolidated. Yeah, let me do that. Yeah.
Can I ask a question about the priorities
Yes.
in terms of that? So was that J? So
J2.
okay, that's a higher priority than A, but A is almost completely designed.
Right. J2 was identified as a priority due to several factors. I believe one was income, the age of the existing septic system. There were a handful of other considerations that ranked these as well. So area A, I believe, is relatively new.
Okay.
I
Oh,
can
go
actually
ahead.
help. I'm sorry. I know you didn't ask for help, but I
Oh,
was,
please.
so as as General Manager Macy was alluding to earlier, we had 8011. We completed that assessment district. We formed 8012. It's sunset. Fast forward through attempts to reassess the area to where we are sitting today with area 18 or 8018 and the various areas. The 10-point criteria that Eric was discussing is how we set the initial MFDJ. Those were the initial priorities. So the benefit of our projects when we were getting so much Prop 84 and earlier Prop 1 monies was because of our scale, how scalable they are. Area D, for example, we were talking about doing a portion of D, which is on the up towards between 12th and Cactus. It started off as D when we actually got it designed by the Corps, but we couldn't finish the design, so we had to make it D1, and then we came back later with D2 and J. We built M, and then we built F, and then we built a portion of J. Again, we scaled back our grant monies to build. So the leftovers end up becoming like a J2. So what you see on the screen is the existing priority. It's been designed, it's ready to go, whereas H and I or A and G and which we have through the Corps and as Eric explained, are finishing design. So we have A almost designed, but we have J completely designed. The various
I don't think that's what that slide said.
if it does, and I'm here to clarify that it is, he mentioned that there is a couple of touch-ups that we would have to do to make them biddable, meaning adjust some dates. But typically what we do as a plan set is we will revise any type of new construction standards. And that's what Eric was alluding to is it is designed, it's complete.
That's why I asked, because it says it wasn't designed. So it's like, why would we make it a priority if it's not?
I think it said it was
Only K was not designed.
Is it K?
And that's that's the fourth priority down.
Is that before A or after?
It's before.
There's my point is why would we make something a priority that's, in other words, why would we design something that's lower priority as opposed to doing the design for a higher priority?
I'm not going to take his thunder, but I will add that when the opportunity to come in and design an area as large as A and couple it with G. We were taking advantage of the design component to make these projects shovel ready so that when other implementation or other grant money to construct, we are shovel ready, we are ready to move. And that's essentially why
Kind of conflicts with what you're saying about a priority, because you're saying this one over here is lower priority, but it's shovel ready, and this is a higher priority and it's not shovel ready. So if the money comes, are we going to do the shovel ready, or are we now going to do the design of the priority?
the best I can, I get it. So the initial priority set the ranking of what areas we do first, and failing septic tanks, area, the when I say that the ROI, I don't necessarily mean like the money that the district's going to make, but it doesn't make sense to put in 2,000 feet of sewer that's only going to get, say, 100 connections versus 2,000 feet of sewer that's going to get, 200 connections. So everything that was, excuse me, everything that was put in the initial ranking, that's where we never designed, A, because it's at the least priority. But all the others that were higher priority, we worked on those designs, and as money became available for construction, we constructed them. And this is where we are today. The money that became available to design A, again, J is still a higher priority. It's up in the areas where there's a lot more failing septics. There's already available sewer to connect. There's a lot of those things that came into play. Some of these areas that the sewer to get it to there to be able to convey it down wasn't constructed. That's no longer the case for the Mission Lakes area or Area A. But again, I think may have missed your.
I'm still not understanding. If K is a priority over A, why is K not designed and A is designed? That's what I'm asking.
Then I missed that. Thank you for clarifying that. I don't have a good answer other than the H and I were ahead of those, and that made sense to move forward with that. And the monies that were being presented for design, it fit better on a larger project and the larger areas that, for example, we would have, my understanding when we started this whole Army Corps is this is the amount of money we're going to get, and we wanted to get the most bang for it. And we wanted to get something where we can complete the design, not do a couple of designs and a partial design. That's my recollection. General Manager Macy, do you have anything else you want to add?
These decisions were made at least before I got here. And this is talking about funding that we've gotten back in, I think, 17 and 18. So let me just clarify for everyone that the money that we're receiving in 22, 23, and 24, the 3.7, I'm looking at it right now, is to do the NEPA compliance for the groundwater protection program and design packages for areas J2, HI, and K.
Okay.
So it is in the process, and we are working through.
I'm just trying
know,
to understand why.
And that's why I wanted to make
What idiot decided that this is a priority, but we'll design down here, which is like last on the list? That's just my question.
no,
And
and
I know we don't have the answer for that.
no, and I thought until today, K was already designed because I was kept looking at these numbers, and it's actually a conversation that Marion and I had this morning that I'm like, I thought K was already designed. I said, let me go look in the files. I went in the files, and sure enough, K did not have a design component. But then when you looked at everything so when we show you the big things, not like something like this, design is not a specific column. But they're looking through some of the files that were updated back in 2020. There is a design component for K, and it's about $150,000. It's a small area, not as large as the other. We got a bigger pot of money, so we went for the bigger project to get that entire area designed. So the decision was made based on, I know what this is our priority, but we couldn't do K, A, and then part of G, so we could do all of A and G. So that's why they did that. I'm guessing at this point, looking back at some of the history, knowing that was a small area, so we're trying to get as much area done at one time. So from that perspective, that's where it is. But it is in the core letter right now to do the NEPA compliance and the design for all the packages, including K. So we are going back to saying, okay, now that we've got additional funding, we're going to do everything. So just to clarify
But
that.
now we have to do the design.
For areas A and G. But they're at 90% from what I understand. And it won't require a lot of effort on our part, but that is something that the Army Corps and Steve and I are working out. Obviously, we'll be coming back to the board with more information as it becomes available for that.
Yeah, Vice President Griffith, I wasn't going to say that, but however, what General Manager Macy brought up is a good point. Initially, the findings of no significant impact, the FONSI, the NEPA component, to be able to build all the areas was done. It was done during a time that we were receiving all kinds of grant money, so we thought we were going to be successful in doing the completion of 8011 right into 12, and some circumstances changed. A lot of different things changed also with the Corps. They're the ones that switched gears on us and said that that process has to be restarted, and that's the process that General Manager is speaking to now. So there have been some hiccups along the way, but that's all I have.
Can we change focus just a little bit? I don't know, you might want to stay, Danny. And look at this, Eric and Danny and General Manager Macy, from a low-hanging fruit perspective. Do we have any low-hanging fruit that we could knock off, that we could get done in a fairly reasonable monetary way? Is there any of these that would apply to that? You know what I'm trying to, like, is if we had one and we had, let's say we have no money coming in. Let's say we have nothing, and let's, other than the 80, the tax assessment that's already come, we've got no grants, we've got only the 80. Is there anything?
The best I can, I believe there is. I want to remind us why we're here having this conversation, which was the area D3, 8018 D3, and everything that's been spoken about today. It may run across the same issues as far as not being able to do it with the grant amount, any grant, with the grant that we receive. So I'm not saying that's impossible, but yeah, there are areas where, for example, General Manager Macy said that we could likely repurpose the 76,000, 73 or $76,000 that we have in Prop 1 Round 1 implementation to a different area. So we're doing it essentially, but to be able to just regroup and take some other areas like the J, for example. I think it's possible. It would require some approval through some of the grantors process, but again, I think we're going to be up against the same issues that we're discussing today.
And then last question, the pipes and such, the actual equipment that is required for building the linear feet, where does that come from? Is that made here in America? Is that something that's imported?
So VCP, vitrified clay pipe, is made. We primarily use Mission Clay. There's another company called Gliding McBean. There's locations in Sacramento, Phoenix. So, gosh darn it!
I know
they're 100%. They're 100% U.S. made.
Okay. so
I've
we wouldn't
actually-
we wouldn't be dealing with additional tariff increase costs for the products and things like that.
My understanding is no.
Awesome. Thank you.
St. Louis.
We might, because of the parts, where the parts come from, could, even though it's made here in America, the
Talking specifically about the pipe.
Yeah.
pipe itself,
The
the
pipe,
materials for the pipe itself,
we're all coming from the United States.
all the iron, well,
So the pipe,
clay, isn't it?
the pipe that we use is vitrified clay pipe. That is all manufactured here in the United States.
Okay.
So if you're referring to some of the manholes and things like that, I know that's not the topic, but many grantors have clauses for Buy America, and there have been requirements for us to switch foundries, and there are foundries here in the U.S. that do not, even though they're manufactured, there's foundries that get their material from China, but there's actual foundries here that produce all of their recycled material, gather it all, and produce here in the United States. So until we actually build something, I don't know how to answer that exactly if we're impacted.
Well, that's good news. Made in America.
I know when we did 8018 and we lumped all these together, it was a benefit to help get the district to pass. But do you see it as, I mean, we lumped them all in and said they're going to cost the same, where on this chart we can see that some areas are going to cost a lot more than others. All of these aren't going to get finished by 2029. I mean, Right. So
You're lucky to get-
do we see in the future, should we break these off into a specific assessment districts to better estimate these costs to these residents?
I think the best way I can answer that is correct. In the past assessment district formations, this is a workshop, so I'll just kind of hit it informally. In the past, we've had uh, opportunities to form an assessment as a standalone area when there is potential that as a total area, it would be voted out. Remember, it's 50 plus 1%. It's a minority vote. You're locked in by two assessment acts, 1913 and 1915 Act, that basically say what it is what it is, and when it sunsets, it sunsets. What might be beneficial for the district in today's times with just the volatility of the market is a CFD. And a CFD is a majority vote or 2/3. So in that case, it does allow you to come in and bring in things and changes like CPI, and would allow these projects to still be completed. Whether we did, excuse me, 2, 4, 6, 8 areas as an individual assessment areas as an assessment, they're still. So if you're saying bite them off a chunk at a time and deal with one sunset, eh, there's possibly a lot of different ways that we could do this. And I think probably the best way is if we can ever get a CFD might be the most beneficial to the district. The struggle that we've had in the past is making these palatable to our disadvantaged community. So this is one of the higher assessment districts that we've done compared to the earlier ones. And given some of the economic reasons, it's not feasible to construct because of some of the cost increases. So uh, in addition to typical, inflation that we would see, your typical 3% or more each year. So I don't know if there is a better mechanism and a strategy on how to do that. We can certainly look at that. I do agree that from a practical sense, it doesn't look that we're going to be able to build these areas by the sunset. And so we'll have to go ahead and take a look at that time. General Manager would like to add anything to that?
No.
I guess a follow-up to that as well. Ideally, the district contribution is 50% of the construction. Those soft costs in previous projects we have completed, do we absorb those costs? Or is that also factored in?
The intent of the assessment district is to pay for everything. That's soft costs from the design, all the different disciplines from project management, construction management, all those are rolled in. Typically, those are percentages based on the actual project cost built into the total cost. But the assessment district, from the contributions of the proceeds from the assessment and the grant that we receive, we're supposed to pay 100% of that. And the costs that you questioned are always have always been included. They are in this particular case. There's a 27-page assessment district that formation documents that lists out all the different soft costs.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone have something to bring this to an end on a more positive note?
Thanks for letting me take over.
Thank you, Dan.
No, I think I'm hearing a sidebar conversation and just want to try to, when we did this back in 2019, I believe our engineer came up with a cost per parcel of about $16,000. Based on what we saw on D3, granted, it was higher than anything we'd ever seen in the past. It was a smaller, you're looking at, if you go down the list of total parcels, that's the smallest project. So it would have the highest cost anyway. So we're taking the smallest area with the highest cost and then pushing it to all the rest of the projects. So in that context, it goes to $38,000. It went from 16 that we were assuming all the way up to 38,000. And that's what we're really grappling with right now. So if we're going to do some significant changes to these assessment districts, now's the time to have that conversation because the costs have increased much higher than the engineer's estimate back in 2019. In addition to that, our core, usually we pay 25 to 33% with just a core project. This is core costs, if you will, almost. And we are going to have some significant issues because the $8,000 we're collecting doesn't get us to the assessment district match. So, and that's when, and the core is a higher percentage than what we typically get from everywhere else. and especially higher than the 50% that we assume. So one of the things, we're bringing this to you for discussion, but yes, I think the conversations that have been had here today, is this sustainable the way it is now? Probably not, and we're going to have to do something else.
I guess, sorry if this is a dumb question, but we established that 50%, right? We came up with that number.
Correct. I believe that was a policy that's been ongoing. Danny, I think you're have the most longevity in the room. Could you even venture a guess of how long it's been?
The first formation of an assessment was 8011. We have had 81, 3, 4, 7. And how those were structured, I don't know, but 8011 was the first time that we actually had gone out, public outreach, town hall type meetings, and got information from our ratepayers and our customers to understand what it would take. And there are some past conversations about Area A or Mission Lakes Country Club being I hate using the word guinea pig, but that's the term that's been used in other public meetings. And it just didn't fly. So that concept has been the concept that has stuck since the early on formation of 8011. So it's just carried through. If we use any other type of percentages higher than that, we just got that bad feedback from our, I'm gonna call it bad, but the feedback wasn't as desirable from the public. So I would say that because it's up to 50% is what made these passing assessment districts for the most part.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I know these sunset in 2029. There is no guarantee that the state won't come in at some point and require us to do this. And should that come after that point, that would be the parcel owners would actually have to cover the whole cost. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Potentially.
Yes, potentially. Yes. I believe that's the way they've done it in other water district areas.
Okay.
One more. I'm so sorry. Just one more thought. How much or of all of these areas, do we have the sewer line up to the entrance of these areas on all of them? So they're literally right, we have access up to,
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I'm just
Go ahead.
waiting. Go ahead.
When we were going through the maps and you see why it just stops at one location, I believe that's where the sewer terminates. And there is a way to go up. Because if you notice, most of them were going up into the mountain.
Right.
So it stopped at a certain point. Hacienda, for example, Hacienda was up here and it stopped just south of there. It was going to go up and continue north.
I just was wondering if there were any areas that we needed to make sure we brought the line to as like a preemptive, how much would that cost if there's any areas where that part's missing?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why you did K differently than
Okay.
A and G, because K was so far out and we knew we had to do several assessment districts before we even got to K.
Okay.
There was a chance that A and G already having a connection at Mission Lakes Boulevard and Little Morongo, there was more of a chance of it. If we got construction dollars immediately, we could go forward. If we got construction dollars immediately for K, we couldn't do that because the subsequent areas leading up to that do not have sewer yet.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
I just add, General Manager, the answer is yes, we actually do have sewer where every one of these areas could convey to an existing sewer. With the exception of K, there's a stretch, a little reach that would have to be extended down Hacienda. But as we do J, that reach decreases. One of the things that hasn't been talked about is that priority. Sewer flows downhill. And we couldn't make a priority at the top end of the district at that one time when there was no sewer. I'll say this, since we're talking in a workshop and we're talking about strategies on future assessment districts, there may be a need to revise and look at our priorities again. And what exists today that didn't exist then is a little different. There has been developments that have brought in off-site sewer to areas. That one development now makes it available for Area A to have a section of sewer to connect to. Many projects like our Pearson, Little Morongo, Two Bunch Interceptor, or project we did as capital projects to help bring other areas and make it possible for some of these areas to connect. But as they are sitting today, as these 8 areas, they all have a available sewer to connect to and convey to our points.
Danny, don't go anywhere. You're not getting off the hook that easy. When you said it might be a suggestion to look at our priorities.
Yeah, if we're looking at different strategies on how to make these more successful,
How long has it been since we have looked at that?
I don't know the answer to that.
A year,
Uh,
10 years,
um,
5 years? It's just guessing. It's a
Yeah.
workshop. I'm not going to hold you to it.
Now, I can tell you that the original concept is from the beginning, reevaluating to determine whether they're still um, should be ranked in that order has been looked at in the last 5 years or better. So I don't know exactly when we sat down and truly got.
My point is, do you feel that we're overdue to come back and to look at this? You think
I
we should
believe
Look at it?
I believe what we're talking about today is why we're unable to construct current 8018 and we realize it's going to sunset before we're able to build anything. I believe what staff needs to be able to present.
Mr. Friend, but my question is.
And I'm-
do you
and I'm
think
getting
that
there
We
right
need to
now.
come back. These, it's just so confusing sometimes, and I'm not getting on you, Mr. Friend. These long answers, and by the time we get done, it's almost as if what are we talking about?
Well, we've already agreed that we should be looking at different ways to strategize. So part of that process would include that. But what I wanted to say is that's not the reason why these projects aren't constructible today.
Understand that, but if we need to look at something and it hasn't been looked at in 5 years, I think we do need to look at something then. That's the point I'm trying to make. Whatever's going on here, the question has been brought up, should we look at it? It's been a while since it's been looked at.
True.
I think as a director and the board will have to make the decision as a whole if we need to come back to look.
I agree with your perspective. Part of the workshop was to provide you the history of where we are today as to, it's not that this was done incorrectly, it's just certain circumstances and realities play into this, so.
Thank you, Danny, and thank you, Eric.
Yeah.
Anything further on item 6, General Manager?
No, President Sewell.
Item 7, General Manager's comments.
Just a couple very quickly. First of all, our production staff completed the first quarterly samples for hexavalent chromium last week. We're still waiting on all the testing results, and we'll present them at our study session / board meeting later in the month. MSWD staff has prepared and submitted its community project request letters for both Senator Schiff and Padilla. We're currently working with Dr. Ruiz's office for their community project request. It's been released. We're just going through that process, making sure that we're following it. As you know, staff and the board met with several federal staff last week in hopes of securing additional funding for our groundwater protection project. The meetings went well, but the mood in DC is somewhat somber. We did get feedback on some of the words we should be using, such as California water management versus some of the words we've been using in the past. I don't want to take away too much of everyone's thunder because I know there's reports coming after this, but I will stop there. Also, we have started with the annual budget process. As such, we'll be bringing back employee asks this month for further discussion. That's all I have.
Thank you. Item 8, Director's comments and requests for future agenda items. Director Martin?
No, I don't have anything right now.
Director Meyer?
Let's keep moving forward.
Sounds good. Director Duff? Director Griffith? I will keep it consistent, and with that, the meeting is adjourned.